Carrie.
Hey y'all, I'm Mandy.
And this is Monstrous. This episode contains topics and language that may not be suitable for all listeners and may be triggering for some. Listener discretion is advised. All right. It's our bonus episode for July.
Whoop whoop.
Can you believe it's the end of July already?
I know, this year's going by so damn fast.
Oh, God, I know.
And his kids start school in what, less than a month?
Yeah, I think it's right at a month, something like that.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I know.
We got Daxton's birthday party Sunday.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a long weekend.
And now I still gotta plan Bryson's birthday.
I asked Logan what he wanted to do this year. He goes, I don't know.
That's how Bryson is. He doesn't want to go to Adventureland now. He's got PTSD.
All right, so before we get into it, we're going to do some of the trial and the sentencing updates that we talked about a few weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
So Brian Koberger is still set to be sentenced on the 23rd. So by the time that this comes out, he'll have been sentenced. So he's supposed to be sentenced today, actually. The day that we're recording this. Yep. So we'll update everyone on that sentence on Monday's episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because that has not been done as the time that we're recording this. There is no update on Diddy's sentencing, so that's still set to take place in October as of right now. And then our last trial update is that of Karina Cooper. So I've been waiting on this one because the verdict was out when we released Monday's episode. But I was hoping that the sentencing would be done or at least scheduled. When I looked, I think it was yesterday, it had not been scheduled. So I'll just update everybody when that comes. So her trial lasted 6 days. The trial was obviously full of emotion. That trial was handed to the jury after the 6 days of testimony. And then after only 3 hours of deliberations, so at 5:51 p.m. on Friday, July 11th, the jury came back with a verdict.
That's pretty quick.
Karina Cooper was found guilty of murder in the first degree. Yep. After the jury was released, the judge gave some brief remarks, as they normally do. Karina's $1 million bond was then revoked, and she was taken away in handcuffs.
Oh, shit.
Yep. So in the state of Iowa, as it is in most states, murder in the first degree is a Class A felony. And in this state, it carries a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Ooh.
And that's a mandatory sentence.
Right.
Which means the judge has no discretion on that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I said, there's no sentencing hearing scheduled. As it carries a mandatory life sentence, that's what she's going to end up getting. Even with time served, she's not going to get out. So I'm curious of what the judge will say at this hearing, because the judge will speak. They'll have victim impact statements, all of that. And then I'm wondering if her team will try to get the judge to give her something else.
Might.
Yeah, which, I mean, the judge can't. There's no discretion there. So we'll watch for each of those and let everyone know when that happens. Obviously, the hearing is going to be on court TV because the whole trial was released on or televised on there. So we'll keep an eye on that. So that's it. That's all I got for those. So are you ready to get in today's case?
I am.
Okay, so it's a little lighthearted after the last couple weeks. And it's kind of an odd one, to be honest with you. But it's a good one. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not a murder or a serial killer. It's more of like a mystical morbid, and it's just bananas. Like, this is not like something you've ever heard before. It's crazy.
Oh, shit.
So we're going to talk about the Silent Twins. Do you know
Is there a movie?
Yes, but I'm not sure. I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head, but there is a movie about them.
Okay, I want to say maybe I've heard it.
Okay, you might have. We'll see. This story is so crazy. Okay, so Jennifer and June Gibbons were born in Aden, which is in the Middle East, On April 11th of 1963, their parents were Gloria and Audrey Gibbons. Gloria and Audrey were from Barbados, but just after June and Jennifer were born, they moved to Wales. So we're across the pond for this one. We are not in the U.S. So growing up, the girls were shy when it came to other people. They didn't really interact with other kids or even adults, and they really only interacted with each other, which I feel like is a common thing among twins. Mm-hmm. They're typically like closer to each other than other kids. But these girls are not normal twins. So they did have other siblings. They had an older sister named Greta, an older brother named David, and eventually they would have a younger sister named Rosie. Rosie was the only sibling that the twins would interact with. And aside from themselves, they didn't pay much attention to anyone but Rosie.
That's strange.
Yeah. So now June was the older twin, and she didn't seem to like actually talk. She just kind of made noises. So even though June was older than Jennifer, Jennifer seemed to be more dominant. When the girls were toddlers, it was clear to their parents that they were going to end up having some kind of speech impediment. In an interview about the girls, their mother said that the girls, they did talk, that they made noises and all of that, but the family knew that they weren't like normal kids who talked, rapidly and at a regular pace. The girls only really ever talked to each other. But when they would talk to other people, they had trouble understanding what the twins were saying. And it seemed like they each just kind of understood what each other was saying, and that was it. Nobody else could figure out what the hell they were talking about. She also said that the girls talked really fast, like way faster than normal children.
That's strange.
Which I'm not going to lie, I kind of feel offended by that because I talk really fast.
You do talk really fast. Especially when you're worked up.
I know. So I'm like, I kind of feel judged right now.
Thanks, my guy.
She also said that it seemed like the girls had created their own language that only they could understand. Which I've heard this is a pretty common thing among twins. Mm-hmm. That they could just kind of understand each other when nobody else can. So, I don't know. Maybe it was just a twin thing. I'm not sure. Now, the girls also did this thing where one twin would start a movement and the other one would finish it.
That's creepy as hell.
Right. Like they're connected on a totally different level.
Right. That's insane.
Right. So one of the girls would walk directly in front of the other one. Okay. They would be literally in complete sync this entire time. Then if someone stopped and like looked at them or whatever, the girls would stop and just stand there staring, waiting for that person to move on about their business. Like literally perfectly in sync at all times. Yeah, connected on a whole different level. And it gets even crazier from here. So now at the time that the girls lived in Wales, the area that they lived in was really racist. They were the only people of color in their neighborhood. And so because of this, the girls were badly bullied at school. So bad that the school allowed the girls to leave early by about 5 minutes every day. So they would have a head start. So the other kids would leave them alone and they wouldn't be subject to, their abuse on their way home.
That's sad.
Yeah. And then their, quote unquote strangeness didn't really help the situation. Mm-hmm. Now, Gloria and Audrey tried sending the girls to speech therapy. They sent them to a regular therapist and pretty much anyone that was willing to see them to try to figure out what was going on. And eventually the girls would be known as the Silent Twins. But no one that ever saw the girls figured out why they wouldn't talk, because they wouldn't talk to any of the therapists they were sent to. They wouldn't even talk in front of them.
So they just stayed quiet the whole time?
Yep. The only thing that the therapist could really get them to do was to read on tape. But the therapist had to leave the room in order for them to do it. So they would set up like a recorder and then leave the room, and then the girls would read.
That's weird.
Yeah. So this is how chief speech pathologist at Haverford West, Wilthy Bush, I think is how you say it. It's a hospital. Her name is Anne Treehorn. I think that's how you say it. I could be wrong. Mm-hmm. She was able to discover that their secret language wasn't made up at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a mixture of Barbados slang and English. But the girls talked so fast that other people couldn't make out either language.
Yeah, what they were saying.
Right. And it was the tapes that had been recorded of them reading that she was able to figure this out. So they're speaking an actual language. It's just they're doing it in a way that no one else can understand them.
Mm-hmm.
So at one point, Anne said that she had felt as though Jennifer was able to like control or possess June through what June referred to as an I language. And the only other person that they would talk to besides each other was their little sister, Rosie, who could sometimes decode what it was that they were saying. And this happened as they got older. And when I say they wouldn't talk to anyone but Rosie, I literally mean that. They wouldn't even talk to their own parents. Yeah. So when they would sit down for meals, they would just sit there in silence. The rest of the family would go on about their day, act normal, hoping that at some point the girls would chime in, but they never did. They just sat there and ate their food.
That's crazy. That would be creepy.
Right? And things got so tense and so, I don't know if awkward is the word, but it was so hard that their older sister Greta would become overwhelmed by all of it and she would just start crying. Yeah. I don't know if awkward's the word, and maybe tense.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we can all imagine, their parents were greatly concerned. So when they were advised by multiple therapists to send the girls to 2 separate boarding schools, they believed that it might work to kind of separate them and then become their own people. So they're like, all right, well, let's give it a try. Nothing else is working. But when the girls found out that they were going to be separated, they lost their minds. And I mean, like, they screamed and kicked and cried. They began hitting each other.
What?
Yeah, one would dig their nails into the other one. And then June had even pulled out big chunks of Jennifer's hair.
Damn.
And then they just went running out of the therapist's office.
That's great.
Right? Could you imagine walking into your therapist's office and seeing that shit?
Mm-mm.
I'd be like, I'm good.
Yep, I'm done.
I'm out. So each of the girls reacted this way. They attacked each other. They both isolated themselves even further than they already had. And then when they were sent to their separate boarding schools, they kept themselves isolated from others. So much so that they would just lay there. They were like in a comatose state. Then anyone that tried to move them said it was dead weight. So now, since separating them obviously did not work and it only seemed to make them worse, their parents and therapists were like, okay, let's bring them back together because it's not working. So once the girls were together, they got better. But they still would not communicate with anyone around them. They were just in their room, hanging out, doing shit together, ignoring the world around them. Now, the girls did what most twins do and would pretend to be each other, but they didn't do it in like a normal way. Like, it's very often, especially identical twins, this is a big thing. As they get older, they'll pretend to be each other to see if people can figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But these girls would fully act as each other. They would only respond to the name of the one they were pretending to be. Then when they wanted to give them, like, be themselves again, they would tell each other, give me back myself. If you give me back myself, I'll give you back yourself.
That's creepy.
Right?
Like, that's weird.
Like, it's crazy. So the girls would spend their day playing with dolls and writing some pretty creepy stuff that some would call morbid fiction stories. They would write stories about their dolls. Okay, no big deal. But these stories about their dolls included the dolls' date of death, how each of them died. Mm-hmm. At this point, the twins wouldn't even eat at the family dinner table anymore. Okay, so they stayed in their rooms, playing with their dolls, writing this creepy doll death stories, and just by themselves in their own little world. Their parents were really trying to accommodate them Okay, because they had no idea what was going on or any of that. So even though the girls were continuing to isolate themselves more and more, they did what they could. When the girls would refuse to come down to eat, they would take the food upstairs on trays, leave it outside of their bedroom door, and hope that at some point the girls would come out. They didn't. So now when the girls weren't writing their stories, they could be found writing in the journals that their mother had gotten them for Christmas. She had gotten in these journals hoping that it would kind of get the girls to start acting as two separate people, but that did not go as planned. When the girls weren't writing stories about their dolls, they would write in these journals, but they did it together. So they would sit in the room together writing in their journals. So in Jennifer's journal, she wrote at some point, quote, "We have become fatal enemies in each other's eyes. We feel the irritating, deadly rays come out of our bodies, stinging each other's skin. I say to myself, can I get rid of my own shadow? Impossible or not possible? Without my shadow, would I die? Without my shadow, would I gain life? Be free or left to die? Without my shadow, which I identify with a face of misery, deception, murder," end quote.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so it seems as though Jennifer sees her sister as like one.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it doesn't seem like she can identify herself without her sister, but she also recognizes that the dynamic is not a good one. Now, Jennifer in her journal once wrote, quote, "Nobody suffers the way I do. Not with a sister, with a husband, yes. With a wife, yes. With a child, yes. But this sister of mine, a dark shadow robbing me of sunshine, is my one and only torment."
Damn.
Yep. Another time, June wrote, quote, "She wants us to be equal. There is a murderous gleam in her eye. Dear Lord, I am scared of her. She is not normal. Someone is driving her insane. It is me."
Sounds like they need to get away from each other.
Right. At this point, like, it really seems like they're pissing each other off, getting on each other's nerves, but they don't know how to separate. They don't know how to be two separate people. Which I'm like, they tried to help you with that, but you went crazy. So things got so bad between the girls that at one point, June had actually tried to kill Jennifer by drowning her. Yeah. They would get into violent fights, which would end up leading to one of them like trying to strangle the other one. They would hit each other and like they even try to drown each other, like I said. But no matter how much they fought, no matter how violent it got, they would always calm down and come back together. Like everything's fine.
That's toxic.
Right. And then when they became teenagers and they began to experiment with marijuana and alcohol, which I don't know how this happened. Okay. Well, I know one way it happened, but before these other people got involved, I don't know how this happened because they didn't communicate with anyone, but it did. So once this happened, they began to get into a lot of trouble. They began to break into people's houses. The first house they broke into was that of an old classmate, and his name was Lance Kennedy. This guy had apparently stuck up for them in school whenever the other kids were mean to them. So I have no idea why it is they decided to break into his house, if they were like obsessed with him or if it's just because a house they do. I don't know, but they did. When they got there, his house door was open and nobody was home. So they went in, they kind of snooped around. Then while they're doing this, Lance's parents came home. But his parents felt bad for the girls, so they decided to just let them go despite the fact that they had broken a door and gone through Lance's brother's clothes. So now Lance by this time had moved away, which I assume the girls didn't know that. So now, of course, his parents were trying to get them to talk, okay, before they let them leave. Try to figure out what the hell they were doing there. Like, we come home to two random strangers in our house. The fuck are you doing here? But all the girls would do was just stand there and stare at them, or they looked at the floor and wouldn't respond. So the parents were like, okay, whatever, just leave. So after this happened, their apparent obsession with Lance moved away from him and placed onto his brothers. His brothers began to hang out with the twins a lot. And this is where they really got into smoking weed and drinking. And then when they would go out with these boys, they would like get all dolled up. They'd bring a bottle of whatever they could get their hands on. And some sources said that the girls would even talk to these boys.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, eventually, Jennifer lost her virginity to Lance's younger brother, Carl, in a church that wasn't too far from his house. Yep. That's the place for that, apparently. This is known because she had actually wrote about it in her journal. Mm-hmm. And then she further wrote that June was there to watch.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's just fucking weird.
Yep. The whole dynamic is odd. It's, I don't know. That's a whole thing, and honestly, it's just too much for my brain to process. So we're just going to move on. So now, shockingly, June and Jennifer seem to be like really embracing this entire teen rebellion thing. All right. They were running around. They were playing ding dong ditch. They were spray painting graffiti everywhere. And they even tried their hand at arson. Mm-hmm. Together, the girls burned down a tractor store, the Pembroke Technical College, which this one had gotten them arrested because they were 19 at the time. And after that arrest, this judge had them committed to the Broadmoor Hospital, which is a high-security psychiatric hospital in England. Yeah, so he's like, these bitches are crazy.
Yeah, right.
So this hospital is well known. All right. It's the most well-known of its kind in England, in fact. And it has a bunch of infamous patients. Mm-hmm. These include the Yorkshire Ripper.
Oh.
The Freddy Krueger Killer, and the Teacup Poisoner.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. So we're just going to throw these girls on there with people like this.
Right.
Real smart. So the twins lived here for like, I don't know, it was around like 11 or 12 years, something like that. I've seen both. So, and throughout this time, they had been studied by a ton of experts. None of the experts had encountered anyone like the twins before. Yeah. And just like before, anytime someone had tried to separate them, they went nuts. But besides, when this happened, they seemed to be in like a catatonic state and they just wouldn't talk. They barely moved. And I guess it creeped everybody out.
That would be creepy as hell.
Like they look like a plastic doll or something. And then all of a sudden they blink.
Mm-hmm.
So doctors and nurses said that when someone would enter the girl's cell, one of the twins would freeze in some weird specific pose in a totally separate room in a different part of the hospital. Then the other twin would do the exact same thing while in a different room in a different part of the hospital. And they would be like standing in the exact same way.
That's trippy.
Yep. And then I guess they would do the same thing when it came to food. One of them would eat like a ton of food and the other one would barely eat anything. And they would like flop that back and forth. Right. It's odd. Mandy's shaking her head because everybody they can't see. She's lost for words right now.
Right.
Then at one point, June had attempted suicide while they were at the hospital.
Might as well put them back together.
Right. So now, after all of this came out about the twins, Marjorie Wallace, a journalist for the Sunday Times, had become interested in the twins. And she began to spend a ton of time with them. And she was able to read most of their journals after she had gained their trust and the parents allowed her to have them. So she not only read the journals, but also their works of fiction. And she had sat down with them many times to try to interview them. Now, Marjorie is why we know so much about the twins today. Throughout her time with them, she had come to the conclusion that neither of the girls were psychopaths like everyone thought, and that they were actually, in fact, amazing writers. And it became very clear to her that the girls felt trapped within each other. And both agreed in their own separate writings that in order for the other to have any chance of a free life, one of them would have to die.
Holy shit.
So it's like they're connected on this unseen level, and neither one knows how to break free. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's...
So then, at nearly 30 years old, and after around 12 years inside Broadmoor Hospital, the twins were released to a more minimum security hospital that was located in Wales. On the morning of March 9th, 1993, on a bus heading to this new hospital, Jennifer had laid her head down onto June's lap, and she said, quote, "At long last, we're out." This would be the last thing that Jennifer would ever say to her twin sister, June.
Oh.
That night, Jennifer died of an apparent inflammation of the heart, even though there was no mention of any previous heart condition in her medical records.
Oh, wow.
They did an autopsy, all of that. There was no evidence of any kind of overdose, poisoning, or anything to that level.
She just died?
Yeah, she passed away out of nowhere.
That's creepy.
Now comes the even crazier part. Once Jennifer passed, June said she at last felt free and liberated, and she knew that her sister gave up her life so June could live, believing that Jennifer willed herself to die. Now, obviously, June went through a period of mourning and grief. I mean, this was her twin. She'd been with her entire life. Now she's gone. But then once it had passed, she went on living her life to the fullest for both herself and her twin. Shortly after Jennifer's death, June was released, and from here, she seemed to live a normal life. She didn't really talk, as she never really did. She was not outgoing at all, but she did talk to people, and she went on about her life. On Jennifer's headstone, there's a poem inscribed on it, and this poem was written by June, and it reads, quote, "We once were two, we made one. We no more two, though life be one. Rest in peace."
It's kind of creepy.
So Jennifer passed away, and June went on to live a normal life. She interacted with other people. She was not outgoing. She was shy, but she wasn't silent anymore.
Maybe that's what she needed.
Mm-hmm.
As weird as it sounds.
Right. Which in their writings, that's what they both felt. They both felt one of them was going to have to die for the other one to be able to actually live.
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
That is, like, twins have something that nobody else has, but that's kind of crazy.
Oh, yeah. It's like a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Yep, but that's it. That's the silent twins.
I'm going to have to look them up, see what they look like.
It is wild. It's one of those that, like, most people have never heard of.
Yeah, I don't think they're the movie I was talking about, though.
There is a movie about it. I just can't think of what it's called right off the top of my head. Yeah, that's a wild one.
That's a good one, though.
I told you, it's one of those you have not heard anything like it before. It's crazy.
Kind of creepy.
Right. It's kind of creepy, but then again, it's like they have a special connection that nobody can understand. But then it's like, I don't know if I want that kind of connection, though.
Right, yeah.
Like, I want it, but then again, there's a level of that's too much.
Right.
So just a little short. It's a little short one.
That was a good one. I like that one.
Yeah, I thought it was a good little palate cleanser after the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then Monday, we got a little pre-spooky season episode.
That's going to be next week?
Yes, on Monday.
Okay.
Yep. A little pre-spooky episode. That one's going to be longer. That'll probably be close to an hour and a half. Yep. It's a good one. It's one that everybody knows of. So once it comes out, everybody will be like, oh, I know that. But there's a lot of stuff in there. I got several different disappearances that are connected to it. that I'm going to tell you about, so it's going to be a little bit longer, but it's a good one.
Can you give us a hint?
It's a giant mystery. Like, I'm trying to think. Like, one of the world's biggest mysteries.
That's going to be a hard one to figure out.
Let me see if I can think of another hint. That doesn't, like, obviously give it away. There's a lot of disappearances that have happened.
Uh-huh.
And there's no explanation for them. Yes.
Is that the one?
Yeah. Especially because I just told you yesterday.
That's why
I'm sitting here. I'm like, what is she doing? She already knows. Yeah, Monday we're doing the... I just finished it. So.
That'll be a good one to do.
Mm-hmm. And I have like several of the disappearances in there to tell you about. A few theories. So it'll be a longer one.
I looked it up and I don't know what to think about it.
It's crazy.
But I didn't do a deep dive like you did.
Right.
Either.
Right. So I think that's it. Unless you have anything else, Amanda?
Nope, I don't have anything today.
All right. Come back on Monday for your regular episode. You can find the few photos for this episode on Facebook. That link's in the description. As always, give us a rate review. Make sure you're subscribed so you get notifications when we drop something new. With spooky season coming up, we're going to have all kinds of little extra fun bonus stuff. We hope you keep listening, and remember to
watch for monsters.
And don't kill people. Bye, y'all.
Bye, y'all.